So welcome back to Third Age Reforged, and as I said in the previous video, today we're going to be looking at another mountain pass type video that I was given, and this one was given to me by Newbie1, who is going to be on the... Well, this again I think is going to be quite similar to the last one in the sense that there is a team that is outnumbered and will probably be a little bit more defensive in nature, and interestingly enough they've chosen to split off from one another and hold up in separate locations. You can see up there and over here in this part. And I'm actually glad that we're going to be seeing this half of the map this time, because quite often we actually see the area that's just in front of us be the main source of action, the very central point here in the pass. It'll be interesting to see if some of the more lesser known about roads are taken in this one. So there's obviously this area up here which very rarely gets used actually. So we'll see if that comes to pass. We'll actually have a look at the red team first of all, I think, because they are the team of three, which outnumber the two. I'm going to dub them the defenders because I believe that is the intention here. And we have BMK Overlord, who is playing as Umbar. He's got a couple of units of Balagire Archers, which in this sort of situation, in the mountain pass, if you're going to be taking the more aggressive route, you are going to need to invest a little bit more in numbers, a little bit more in units that are going to be a little bit more conducive to taking damage. And the Balagire Archers are certainly that. They're not overly expensive and they can withstand quite a lot of pressure, particularly seeing as both defending factions here are going to be elven ones, so the Balagire Archers will be able to withstand a little bit more in terms of their arrow fire. They will of course still lose a skirmish fight, however. I've also got 4 units of Balagire Footmen, a similar situation here. Obviously this is a unit which is not going to beat many elven units at all. In fact, I'd say the Balagire Footmen in melee could only really defeat one-to-one the weakest elven skirmishers. Even if that, I mean, the Balagire Footmen are very much based around their ability to hold a line traditionally. Not the most in terms of damage, very much the quintessential human spearmen in that they fall back a little bit more in their armour, their shield values, but again, they could make very good tar pit units here. I'm not sure how this is going to go for Umbar, investing quite so heavily in Balagire Footmen, but we'll see. Back here, of course, we've got the Castamir's Legion, obviously a good choice. You see this most of the time with Umbar, very much the heart and soul of their army. And very important against the Elves as well, because this is a unit which can go toe-to-toe with a lot of Elven units, one of the few units that will genuinely be able to have victory in several cases. But of course, they will still be quite outnumbered, and of course, with superior positioning, the Elves will still be able to take them down, and of course, the Elves, more so than most, have got the tools to actually beat the Castamir's Legion one-on-one with certain units, whereas, you know, most of the time, Umbar can count on having a genuine infantry advantage with this unit. Probably not going to be the case here, depending on the kind of units that the Elves have brought. Abrazani Nardubawi looks like a single unit of them with the armour upgrade. Obviously, this is very much the Balagire Archers on steroids. Very much one of the most defensive-minded archers in the game. Good shield value, obviously not the best in terms of damage for their price, but their tankiness more than makes up for that. And they double as half-decent line infantry and melee as well. And then over here we have the Abrazani Narduzagar with the armour upgrade, which is going to be absolutely key if the Elves decide to try and focus them down. Now, the Narduzagar, it's a bit of a catch-22 here, because the Narduzagar would be pretty decent in melee against the Elves. They are a human swordmaster unit, so they do have the skill to not get wiped out quite so easily by some of the better Elven units. However, they are unshielded, and Elven skirmishers, even with the armour upgrade, will still make mincemeat of them, turn them into pincushions. Now, this is a very questionable choice. There's 4 units of Corsair Savages. They are very cheap, and they are AP, and they can do quite a lot of damage in the right situations, but considering their position on the battlefield, they are going to be advancing into Mirkwood, which is one of the worst matchups for the Corsair Savages. They have next to no armour, which means, in fact, I think they actually literally have 0 armour, which means archers are just going to slaughter them, and in melee their AP won't help them all that much. The high skill of the Elves will mean they can cut through them pretty easily. They'd be much better off going for the blue army in this situation, which is in Ladris, in which their AP will not be completely wasted. The Warlords of Umbar, a knight unit. This is going to be the general as well, our Pharazon going to be riding with his knights. The Warlords of Umbar, again, the knights can be potentially extremely damaging. However, in an enclosed map like this, they will be more difficult to use, and if the Elves decide to really box in, the Warlords will be best saved until the late game. If they charge in too quickly, the Elves will easily be able to sort of bank up and deal with the threat that the Warlords pose. Similar story with the Numenorian Lancers, only with the Lancers, of course, they're even more vulnerable. And obviously, if any enemy cavalry is on the field, they want to stay clear of that if they want to be cost-effective to the extent they will want to be. We've got Savage Paradox playing as Harad. Let's have a look up here, and it looks like he's going to be advancing onto the Imladris position, which could work out quite well. Harad have got some nice AP options as well as a lot of numbers that they can bring to the field. Southron Archers as well, obviously a very numerous archer unit here. and obviously some Haradrim archers as well, so a lot of numbers here. So in terms of a protracted skirmish, Harad tends to do quite well in the way that most evil factions do, and they just bury the enemy beneath an avalanche of low quality ammunition. Some dismounted Serpent Guard, which is another nice choice, I think, because the Serpent Guard should be able to trade decently with some of the lower tier Imladris units. I mean, if Harad skimp on their infantry quality too much, as we saw in the fight against Linden, it came back to bite them in the end, whereas a unit or two of Serpent Guard in that situation may very well have turned the situation into Harad's favour. The Serpent Guard by no means will win the fight against a multitude of the Imladris infantry, but they should at least do better than some of the low tier units like Haradrim Spearmen, which is the temptation to bring as Harad because they're so cheap, and it allows you to bring some of Harad's more fancy units. But you know, I'm actually surprised not to see the Southron Warband, because they would be a pretty good choice with their AP here. I've actually got some dismounted Serpent Guard with the armour upgrade as well. I love that armour upgrade, I really love the Black Serpent unit model. We've also got the Champions of Nafrat, which is a very good choice. Multiple HP, AP units, one of the few units which will give pretty much anything in the Imladris roster on foot pause for thought. And then over here we have some Muhad Beast Tamers as well. A lot of Muhad Beast Tamers, a lot of pikes, which in a grindy fight could well prove to be very useful, but of course very vulnerable to arrow fire. We've also got some Trollmen, which again is another good choice. Obviously it's going to be... The Champions of Nafrat in conjunction with the Trollmen are pretty difficult for a lot of factions to take down, and with the more infantry-focused nature of this Harad army, they've got Serpent Guard to back them up as well, so a very robust force here. Over here we've got some Demons of the Desert as well, so another unit which on foot, both at range and in melee, can be a real danger. And this is going to be interesting as well. This is a unit which we haven't seen a great deal of since they were introduced, because they are somewhat unique and they are somewhat situational as well. We have 2 units of the Muhad Warbeast. Now they have, I think, 3 hit points and they have a huge charge bonus, but there is not very many of them in the unit. But I think as well they have the mass capable of completely destroying lines. Interesting to see how they use them here, because again, similar story with any other cavalry, mountain pass maps tend to be a little bit more enclosed, and even with the extreme charge that the Warbeasts possess, I'm not sure whether or not they're going to have the impact necessary to really trouble the Imladris lines, but we'll see. And then finally Isengard, played by Zombie Bunny. We've got some Bane Guard and some Uruk-hai archers out here in front, and then the rest of the army is over here, and they may very well be heading the long way around, because there is actually a gap over here, I believe, which the army can take to go to the back end of the mountain pass, and there are routes in, and I hope to see them take that actually, because it will make sure that the elves can't just defend from one direction. Sorry about that. Interrupted again. We have some Uruk-hai Raiders here at the front without their armour upgrade, just some basic units here. Uruk-hai Reavers as well. The armour piercing, again, it's a very similar story here with the Corsair Savages, only maybe not quite as extreme. They do have some better defensive stats than them at least, but still very much an AP axe unit, more disposable as well, so definitely going to have to go against Imladris to get the most out of them here. Some Uruk-hai infantry with the armour upgrade as well. They can be pretty solid. Not quite as good as the Guardians of Khan Doom in my experience, but still a very solid front line for Isengard. Obviously the Uruk-hai make up the very heart of their army. Bane Guard as well, so more AP. There's a lot of AP from the attackers here, except for Harad, ironically enough. Uruk-hai crossbows as well. Crossbows may be an armour-piercing focused unit, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you get them into a position where they can fire, they can do devastating damage. We'll see if they are able to, though, with the Elven position being what it is. Uruk-hai pikemen, obviously a full line of them. Wouldn't be an Isengard army without them. Some Trolls of the White Hand, obviously one unit of Trolls. They are real juggernauts in melee. We'll see how well they can do. They should be able to inflict casualties, even on the Elves. And then some Uruk-hai Berserkers, the standard model. And then I think this would probably be the General. Back here we can see the Nazkai. Obviously very, very strong. One of the strongest single units in terms of damage that you can have in terms of infantry as well. Meanwhile, over here we have Mark XMD playing as Imladris, and he has got some Noritino warriors here up on the cliffs, as well as some Elder Enway, Heru Quinga, and some God Helib Ainaur. Naturally, he's going to be banking up pretty heavy against the Harad advance, so Isengard are going to need to get a shift on if they're going to attack both Mirkwood and Imladris from behind. Got some Noritino warriors over here. Just further down the hill as well, we can see some Imladris Blade Masters, obviously nice and skilled. Imladris Sentries, making sure I don't miss anything. Some Blade Masters. Some Gwathi Arthand as well, and interestingly enough, Imladris have also invested in their cavalry, which is not cheap. The Elder Enway Heru Myro, which is the Lance cavalry as well. We'll see how well they can do, obviously off a charge. Very devastating. Imladris Guardians, the Gwathi Myrdain as well. It's going to be hard to see where the General is at, considering all of his best units are kind of clumped together. More Imladris Sentries. It might be that the Gwathi Rockdor is the General. Are they? I don't think this is the General model. I think this is just basic model. No, I don't think he is in the Gwathi Rockdoor, which is a good choice considering they seem to be charging right out to meet Harad. Imladris Guardians, some Eldar Etar, as well as some Eldarenway Haru Hatal, and that's going to be just about it. There may be a few hidden units as well, but we'll see. Finally, the player who sent me this replay, we have Mirkwood, played by Newbie1, and he's got some Hiri Peng up here on the cliff. Obviously, Mirkwood's range in this sort of situation can be absolutely lethal. Delu Pengi Emondweir in particular, I'm imagining this is the kind of unit which could get the most kills on the field today. A catapult as well, so this should force Umbar to move. Well, Umbar are sort of covered by the mountain pass in a minute. Honestly, if I were Umbar, I'd wait until Imladris had been dealt with by my allies before moving on Mirkwood, because Mirkwood's position is so lethal to a just straight up charge. Maitha Ilazgalan and some Arithalion E Nanwaith, which is not the general. Interesting. We've got some more units up here though, some Maitha Ilazgalan, some Hiri Out, obviously the line infantry of Mirkwood, which should be able to go toe to toe with most anything else on the field. We've also got some Aragwe E Nanwaith, and some Hiri Lung up here as well. More Dalu Pengi Emondweir. A second unit of Athalion E Nanwaith, which is the general's unit, so he's gone for 2 units of them. Hiri Ek, some Aradirith Amon Lank, which double as some nice AP units, and then some Gwath E Erin Gallan. I'll be interested to see how these guys get on, because they are an assassin unit with throwing knives, and they aren't often brought either, because they are somewhat finicky to use. We'll see. But without further ado, bit of an elongated introduction to the armies there, but let us begin. This is going to be where the first engagements start to happen. The Southron archers are moving out, but this is going to expose them to the Gwathi Rockdoor. And interestingly enough, I don't think Harad have actually got all that much in terms of anti-cavalry capabilities up here. They don't really have spears, they don't really have pikes, so the Gwathi Rockdoor are going to be able to basically charge in at will. Now the archers will start to fire on these knights, but it's only low quality ammunition, and the Gwathi Rockdoor, they can power through this, and they are going to get a bit of a tame charge, honestly. I think maybe the Gwathi Rockdoor hesitated a bit there when they could have had a clean charge onto really any of these units. They could take their pick. They need to be careful now, however, because the Haru Myro have come forward, but now the Harad War Beasts are coming forward. These Haru Myro are going to charge in. There's some Hashari Stalkers over here, which with their body piercing, they would be able to deal some nice damage to the cav. Unfortunately now as well, I'm not sure the Haru Myro will actually manage to escape from here. The Imladris line have pushed up to try and cover this valley. The Haru Myro are actually not being targeted a lot by all of these units. The Muhad War Beasts kind of slow on the uptake there. But even so, this fight has started right away, which I'm pleased about. Haru Myro have taken some losses. That could have been way worse than it was. They got it in way over their head. They could have been surrounded, even with a lack of anti-cavalry bonus. I think the Muhad War Beast technically count as spear cav, so I think, don't quote me on that, they were at one point anyway, but I haven't seen them used in so long that it might have changed since then. They would be able to do decent damage to cavalry, but really nothing else in the Harad line other than their javelins. They wouldn't want to use their Demons of the Desert this early. As it is, I'm actually surprised that the Imladris player is not continuing to harry the Harad lines with their cav, because there's really nothing stopping them from doing so, and the Gwathi Rockdoor are coming back for seconds here, I think. Or are they? No, then, yeah, they are. Good. This is absolutely the right thing to do. I mean, Harad, I think what they wanted to do was use their plentiful skirmishers to try and whittle down Imladris. They're not being allowed to do that. And the Gwathi Rockdoor taking full advantage of the fact that there's no spears or pikes, which is very strange from Harad. It's very rare that you see Harad without any Haradrim spearmen, Southron warband, or even... They do have a lot of pikes, but the pikes are still way back down here, and I can see why the pikes have not been pushed forward, because the pikes will be horrendously vulnerable to the Imladris forces. Meanwhile, let's just go and have a look over here. You can see the Umbar moving forward in loose. The catapult is up there, it is reforming, but again, all of these units being in loose, it is going to be somewhat difficult, I think, for Mirkwood to get full value from their catapult unless they save it for the late game. When there will have to be some form of blob. Be interesting to see how that works out. But Umbar needs to be really careful on the advance here. They need to stay in loose. They need to kind of be... I honestly don't know if I would engage this position at all yet. Imladris need to be the first target, I think. And unfortunately, it looks as though Isengard is just moving down here, so I don't think that they've spotted this route back around here, which does mean, of course, that this is going to be very much a one-front fight, which is exactly the sort of thing Imladris would have hoped for. Even with Harad's slightly bigger focus on more quality infantry, when it comes to a slogfest in a canyon like this, when Imladris have got access to their elites, there's only going to be one winner there. The Gwathi Rockdor charge forward. They are going to be met by the Muhad War Beasts, but honestly at this point I think regardless of the casualties they would take, you need to send forward the pikes, otherwise Imladris is just going to keep hammering away at your front line. And honestly, the War Beast could be exactly the sort of thing which in the late game you could use to your full advantage. You don't really want to be using them as the shield, because the archers will be able to whittle away their HP, and these Harad skirmishers really not having the best time of it here. You can see another charge, but just charging again and again the Gwathi Rockdor. And now the Eldarenwe Haru Hatal are coming forward as well, so the spears with the anti-cavalry bonus, you can see that the sort of rhino beasts are now slowly but surely being bled out. Several unit models have started to fall. More and more of them falling by the wayside. They need their pikes up here real bad. So far the Imladris player has taken advantage of the situation that has presented itself here. And this is why a lot of people tend to have disposable cheap spears on the front line, which Harad, 9 times out of 10 will bring, purely because it will prevent something like this from happening, or at least make it a much less attractive proposition. But here, the Harajam skirmishers have taken a real beating, and their numbers definitely looking a little bit worse for wear. Meanwhile, let's have a look at what's happening over here. We'll get up onto the cliff, and we can see that the Hiri Peng starting to fire, as well as the catapult, and there's a huge blob of Umbar forces moving in. They are all in loose formation, but they will still be taking casualties on the approach. Corsair Savages moving forward as well. So this catapult crew running around in circles. Obviously Mirkwood, I would actually say that the catapult can't move from this position at this point, because this map has got a terrible history of causing artillery to do the glitch where it sort of falls off the cliff and sticks to the side of the cliff and becomes unusable. The catapult's still attempting to bombard the Umbar position. Mirkwood, however, they have halted their fire at the moment, which is wise. Well, the Hiri Peng are still firing into all of the Balagai units. Casimir's Legion also moving forward 3 units of them. Some Uruk-hai archers also, so Isengard are also sending over some support, which Umbar will desperately need, because Mirkwood are they're in arguably a harder to dislodge position than Imladris, because Mirkwood are going to be able to leverage their skirmishers to their full effect, getting in full view of the enemy, whereas Imladris, they have to rely a little bit more on their infantry, which admittedly is Imladris' primary strength. And look at this, the Gwathi Rockdor just causing absolute mayhem in the lines, and now finally Savage Paradox is sending forward his pikes, which he really needed to do sooner. I think the damage has already been pretty extensive on the Haradrim forces. Southern Archers move forward. They only have 1 unit of War Beasts left in full hell. Or even not that, I think. The Isengard forces are moving forward now. Maybe they would be better placed to help out here. They could have, of course, go for the tried and true method of using their mass at this point, which will, of course, inflict quite a lot of casualties on the attackers as they do that, but I don't really see how else they're going to go about doing this. They can't afford to engage piecemeal with the elves. Otherwise the elves will just slowly but surely wear them down. The Eldar Etal also backing up the Heru Etal. Not exactly the most damaging units that Imladris could have on the front line. Noraturno warriors getting into position, and now the skirmishers are here, and with the pikes just in behind them, the Gwathi Rockdor will probably not come back out, although are they? They are. They will inevitably retreat back behind their spear wall, indeed. But this is the problem here. Harad are not being allowed to implement the game plan they clearly wanted. And they're going to have to think of a plan B here, because so far everything has gone Imladris' way pretty much. And plan B might have to be leading the way with some pikes, taking some attritional casualties, and then backing them up with a lot of the heavy duty units. Isengard are up here. You need to leverage your numbers here. You need to try and smash through this initial defence, because if Imladris are allowed to hold this narrow point of the battle, it's going to go poorly with the attackers. And time again, the archers are just not allowed. They do actually land a charge. This could be risky though. The Gwathi Rockdor needs to run before the Beast Tamers get too much of a hold on them. yeah, Harad Skirmish is having a bit of a torrid time of it so far. Let's go back over to here, where we can see that Umbar are actually engaging already, which is impressive. They're wasting no time at all. Here at EEC obviously are going to be, you know, too strong for Balagai Footman. But it looks as though Umbar's archers are trying to shoot into the side of the Hero EEC, which is definitely a worthwhile thing to do. Trying to engage in a skirmish fight with Merc while they've got a position like this, probably not the best thing to do. But I would also argue that well, actually those Balagai archers should be able, well, I say that, they're taking huge losses already. We'll see. I mean, Umbar's skirmishers are better placed than most to withstand the beating, but considering the positions, I'm not sure. Also, they don't really have the best shot, as it were. You can see some of the arrows going wide, some of them even hitting their own man. But obviously, 1-to-1, the Hero Yak, far, far too strong for Balagai Footman. And this is a map in which, as we sort of look from on high, you can see there's several roads in. I think the attackers here will do themselves a huge disservice if they don't try and take advantage of all the avenues of attack they have. If they funnel in to individual choke points like this too much, their numbers are going to disappear, and they're not taking advantage of their numbers advantage. As the Hero Yak will be able to stand up to this sort of pressure all day long. There are Corsair Savages moving in, which admittedly have not been the main focus of the archers, so they haven't been completely decimated. But I still question their usefulness against Mirkwood of all factions. They have slightly higher armor values on their hero units than the likes of Linden do on their central units, but even then, it's certainly not the main focus, and the huge skill of the Elven units and the lower skill of the Corsairs is going to prove to be a real problem here. Meanwhile, the Hashari Stalkers have revealed themselves. Now that could be an interesting move. They could potentially do humongous damage, although now they've hidden themselves once more. The Uruk-hai crossbows are in position as well, which of course potentially very, very damaging as well. Their bolts have actually got a nice shot as well. A lot of them are actually missing, but at least they're not arcing their shots, so they shouldn't lose too much in the way of power. But the elves are still content to tank this damage, as they should be. They need to be careful that they don't abandon this this narrow position, however, because if they allow Harad and Isengard to charge forward, which at this point now, considering the scattering to the winds of all of these Imladris units, now is the time to quickly advance. Lead the way with the pikes so the cavalry can't interrupt you, but you need to, when an opportunity like this presents itself, you need to take it. Because this would be depriving Imladris of their best defensive position, but I think that Harad and Isengard are both intent on trying to skirmish, which you need to be flexible in a battle like this. I think you need to be prepared to charge forward, especially when you're Harad and Isengard, with the army compositions they have brought as well. Because getting Imladris into a wider section will definitely suit the more numerous factions more. Let's go and see what's happening over here, though. Umbar are definitely being hugely aggressive here, which I can appreciate, but I'm not really sure that it's going to serve them too well. You can see that all of these Mirkwood units, they see the advantage that this narrow choke point is going to afford them, and they're sending forward a lot more of their units. They've got some Hiri out, and I also spied, yes indeed, a unit of the Arthalion Inanwaith, which are going to lay waste to pretty much anything Umbar have. Even the warlords of Umbar, if they don't get a charge off, the Arthalion Inanwaith I think count as two-handed spears, so the warlords would not be long for this world in that situation. All of these units in loose. I can't imagine Umbar's percentages are looking too good right now in terms of the kills and casualties they've inflicted versus the casualties they've taken. Unit of Hiriak, however, looking a little bit more thin on the ground, but even so they're still holding pretty fast. The high skill serving them well. You can see the Gwathir and Galen just sort of menacingly waiting. I heard a charge then, what was that? Ah, well there's the Elder Runway Haru Myro. And indeed they did charge into the Umbar forces. That's a bold move considering it's mainly Balagai footmen down here. But it is worth trying to single out Umbar because the assault on the other side has basically relegated itself to trying to take the slow approach with the skirmishers. And not only that, but they only have one way in and out. Whereas Umbar is sort of exposed on all sides. So I do feel as though the elves have taken a pretty good advantage of their positioning so far. I feel slightly bad for Umbar in this situation, considering how hopelessly outmatched they are. But Wakely Rockjaw charging into the front again, doing a nice amount of damage to those Uruk-hai Reavers, and the Pikes just in behind. The Reavers, two-handed axes can have an anti-cavalry bonus, but it's not quite as telling as the Pikes, and cavalry once again proving to be a real thorn in the side of this advance. It is worth saying though that the elves are outnumbered by an army, so the attackers can afford to make more mistakes than the elves. One critical mistake from the elves and the battle could turn against them very quickly with the numbers they're facing. But now we finally have a melee engagement. The Moonhide Beast Tamers moving in, forming up a front line with their pikes. Uruk-hai Reavers going to back them up. So they have more units on the way, they don't. They need to send in something else. Some Uruk-hai infantry heading up the hill. Either them or the Serpent Guard would do just fine. Although I would argue that you probably need to have something a little bit more damaging if you're going to deal with the Elder Runway Harry Patal, and especially the Imladris Guardians. Both units work really well in conjunction with one another. Obviously, some of the more expensive Imladris units. Imladris' expensive units in general are just extremely powerful, as you would expect. More and more Umbar forces moving forward. The Hiriak starting to take quite a bit of damage. Quite a lot of that presumably from the archers in behind them. Also, the fact that they are spears means they won't be able to kill the shock infantry quite as quickly as they otherwise would, which does mean the higher attack values of these Corsair Savages and these half-orc Bane Guards will actually, well, I say that, the Bane Guard have just routed. They will be able to land more hits at the very least than they otherwise would if they were facing something like Hiri Out, which would cut them down pretty mercilessly. The Corsair Savages are also shaken at this point as well. I believe the Savages have actually got something about higher morale. Well, that was something that was talked about at one point. The fact that they're sort of crazy enough to go into battle without their shirts on, although at this point, even if they did, they're actually being manually removed from the fight at this point, and that comes from a rear charge from the High Elven Knights. Huge gaps appearing over here, and also the Elder Runway Haru Myro. The Imladris Cavalry being used to very good effect so far. So far the MVPs, I would have to say, both of these units of cavalry, because really the attackers have done a pretty bad job at trying to stop them. Here they did manage to get a good catch there, the Belagai footmen trapping several of the Haru Myro. As the battle goes on, the threat that these Elven Cav units pose will lessen, at the very least. But now the Hiri Out are going to be backing up their Hiriak brethren. And I'm not really sure that Umbar have got the power needed to get through this Merkman position on their own. It really could have done with assistance. To be fair, there is some Isengard units, but it's difficult. I think they really needed to get behind the mountain pass and attack from multiple directions if they were going to have success here. Because in this situation, if you allow the elves a position like this, and you don't use the tactics that people normally use to get them out of the way, such as, you know, mass pushes, you're in a bit of trouble. The Elven units in this sort of situation will do horrendous damage. They've also got a unit of Eldar Etar in there as well, so a bit of a phalanx to support them. To be fair, the Beast Tamers won't die all that quickly because they have managed to get their pikes down. And now we've got a unit of Uruk-hai pikemen coming up here as well, so they may not smash their way through this Elven defensive line all that quickly. But neither will they die without some range pressure. I say that as the Noratuno warriors are now in view. There's also some Haraj March, and the Demons of the Desert are coming forward. Now this is a bit early in the battle to see the Demons of the Desert, but this is the sort of thing which could destroy the Imladris position, which could turn the battle on its head pretty quickly. Do they have a shot though? That's the question. They were reloading for a second there. But this is not the easiest angle for them to shoot. There's more Imladris Guardians on the way. And you can see that this is obviously something that they're talking about between the team. The Uruk-hai pikemen trying to move out of the way so the Demons of the Desert have a shot. Some Imladris sentries moving over there as well. The elves have got to have noticed the Demons of the Desert at this point, but they can't really move, because if they try and retreat, it would go really badly for them, because regardless of what happens then, this defensive position would be lost, which they would be loath to give up. They are now reloading. Do they have a shot? I think they do. They do, but they're attacking Noratuno warriors and Imladris sentries. Noratuno warriors mainly. It breaks my heart to see them misused in this manner. Why would you go after lower tier skirmishers with them? The Demons of the Desert are potential match winners. You know, they're one of the units which are genuinely feared when you face Harad. And using them to go after Noritino warriors when they just have another unit that they can slot into place is unfortunate, shall we say. Meanwhile, Hiri Pang over here. What do we have? Belagaya Footman, but again, these Umbar assaults, they're trying to do damage. The Uruk-hai archers are also trying to do damage to the Mirkwood units, but at this point Mirkwood have just been able to hold fast so easily. Amazingly, Mirkwood did manage to move their catapult without one of them falling off the cliff. Indeed, all three of them are still there. The fact that the Athalioni Nanwaith are still there, the fact that there's 2 units of them, that's going to be really difficult for the attackers to break down. Isengard is still looking pretty healthy. There's still the Castamir's Legion, but these lower tier units that have been sent in have not really made all that much progress. Basically, one unit of Hiriek has been damaged pretty heavily, which is, you know, not really the sort of trade they wanted. Again, 11% lead so far for the defenders, the blue team. Dismounted Servant Guard moving in. This is a little bit more like it. The attackers trying to use their numbers, trying to simply overwhelm the defensive line. Now the Muhad War Beasts are coming forward, but this is a bit of a misuse of them, I think, because there are both Eldar Enway Heru Patal and the Eldar Etar in here, which, to be fair, they're pushing through. That's impressive, although I would have to say that the Phalanx and the Spearmen would eventually take their toll, surely. Perhaps the Harad player believes that disrupting this defensive line is worth losing this expensive unit of War Beasts, which he might be right, to be fair. Losing this defensive position here and getting into this wider engagement over here would be tricky for Imladris to reconcile with, but those War Beasts ultimately maybe didn't have quite the devastating effect that Harad wanted, although now there's a lot of Serpent Guard in here. The Demons of the Desert are on the way back, but Imladris reinforces the line with another unit of Imladris Guardians. Sans the armour upgrade, but in this situation it won't matter too much because there's not a huge amount of AP units on display. Although this is starting to look a little bit dicey for the Elves. The Serpent Guard are trying to push, you can tell, and victory is starting to look more and more like a possibility for the attackers. Let's quickly hop on over to this defensive line where the Corsair Savages have re-engaged, but once again, not exactly the kind of unit you want going up against Mirkwood. Mirkwood's skill is just going to send these guys packing. Uruk-hai archers to Balagai have taken a bit of a beating, but they're still online, and that is the real virtue of them. They've managed to take a beating from Mirkwood's skirmishers and still remain a presence on the field, even if they're not as effective as they once were. At normal they do a huge amount of damage, but drawing a lot of Mirkwood's skirmish fire is a worthwhile endeavour. Another unit of Eldar Enway Haru Atal moving in. So now this is a little bit more like it. I know people have found mass pushes a little bit controversial, but to be fair, in this situation there are no spears and there are no trolls, which means that these are all units which don't exactly have this tactic in mind. Some of the Beast Tamers have charged through the lines, which does mean gaps are starting to appear, particularly over on this side, you would have to say. And at this point, the Elves starting to struggle. So those Serpent Guard and those War Beasts, they may have taken some really nasty losses, Harad, but they have at least managed to do some kind of damage, although now some Eldar Enway Heru Masil moving in as well, which is, they're already being targeted by the Hashari Stalkers, and rightly so, because, oh, that's brutal actually. Loads of them dying, and the Heru Masil immediately retreating. Those Hashari Stalkers used well there. That body piercing used to good effect. Obviously the Heru Masil are not multiple HP. It's a very important distinction. They're probably the best non-multiple HP Swordmaster unit in the game, because their stats are ludicrously high when they get into sustained melee. But the lack of multiple HP means they can be vulnerable to that sort of thing. But the Hashari Stalkers also are not great in a skirmish fight, which the Noritino warriors are trying to take advantage of here. Frontline engagement continues. The Eldar Enway Harutal, the second unit of them, appears to have stemmed the bleeding for now. But this large concentration of Uruk-hai pikemen is going to make it so that this attack is not going to go away anytime soon. And the high concentration of pikes in general from Harad and Isengard will mean that it's going to be difficult for the elves to completely destroy this attack. It's going to be a continuous thing they're going to have to deal with at this point, I would think. They do have a lot of reserves, however. They have a lot of nasty units as well, including the Imladris elites. Meanwhile, Uruk-hai infantry now moving forward, as well as Uruk-hai pikemen. This is a little bit more of a genuine threat to the Mirkwood front line. Less so the Uruk-hai infantry, I'd have to say. In fact, you can tell that this is viewed as much more of a threat, because the Delupeng Eamenduya are shooting right into the flank of this Isengard force, which is ultimately going to completely destroy this assault, because they're in the perfect position. The body piercing is going to go right through their ranks. But if that wasn't there, the pikemen would have been a pretty good use. Here. Mirkwood in general, their lower armor values mean pikes eventually can wear them down pretty nicely. It is over a long period of time, admittedly, and they're not going to get the opportunity to do that. These Uruk-hai pikes, even with their decent armor, not going to stand up too well to the Delupeng. Obviously, unlike a lot of the human rangers, the Delupeng have the advantage of being 6 missile damage, so they're even stronger. Some Uruk-hai archers, presumably that are out of ammunition, just being sent in as fodder, hopefully trying to draw the fire. They need to try and get this ammunition out of Mirkwood before they launch a genuine assault, which is presumably why stuff like the Castamir's Legion has hung back a little bit, which I absolutely agree with. Umbar needed to be a little bit more cautious, whereas over here, again, the grind continues. And those Hashari Stalkers firing into the Noratino warriors now, it would appear. Oh no, that's the Haradrim archers. Hashari Stalkers appear to have fallen back. Haradrim archers doing their best to try and nullify the Imladris skirmish threat, which again, understandable. The Heru Masil may have been fallen back, but the other Elven Swordmaster unit, the Blade Masters, not quite as strong, but cheaper, and they also have an anti-cavalry bonus, which is an interesting little plus point that they have. They would definitely be a worthwhile addition to the front line. Harad are really eager to get this this defensive position sorted, and the Champions of Nafarat is exactly the sort of unit that will do just that. They are the single strongest unit in this engagement if they are committed. And even if the Blade Masters were to commit themselves to the front line, they wouldn't beat the Champions. The Demons are also right here. The Trolls are also moving forward, so at this point aggression is needed. Over on the other side, the engagement with Mirkwood has not gone so well, so they need to try and effect some sort of advance over here. And they have far more in the way of numbers over here that they can throw at the situation. Here come the Trolls. This should do it. The Trolls of the White Hand are some of the strongest Trolls in a sustained fight. This should be enough. The casualties they inflict and the chaos they cause in the Elven line should be enough to open up this field. The Heru Quinga are on their way forward, but this is not really the neighbourhood they want to be in anymore with the Trolls. The Trolls, some of them getting caught. Honestly, I would say it would be worthwhile to keep the Trolls in melee over here. I mean, they are going to do some horrendous damage to the Heru Quinga, to be fair, as well. But the Heru Masil are coming back now. The Blade Masters have been committed. The Champions of Nafarat in there, they're still being held back, but another unit of dismounted Serpent Guard. That was a shot from the Demons of the Desert, going right through the Elven ranks. I mean, at this point, I would save the ammunition from the Demons of the Desert. There's no real need to use them right now, because eventually you're going to have victory anyway. Another unit of Pikes moving forward. This Elven front line's days are numbered, but they can still potentially get more kills than you would expect them to. Let's see here. Warlords of Umbar moving forwards. And you can see there are still Uruk-hai on this front line. The Delupeng may very well have run out of ammunition at this point, but damage was done. And at this point, actually, the Pikes managed to stay in, well, 33 men is not exactly good condition, but they are alive. Uruk-hai infantry as well, they're now being backed up by Corsair Savages, more and more fodder. And at this point, the Mirkwood front line is looking a little bit more ropey. They're going to need some reinforcements. Now, fortunately for them, they do have that. And you can see now that there's another unit of Delupeng, so 2 units of the Delupeng Eamenduya. Another one getting into position here. Obviously, the Corsair Savage is not viewed as a worthwhile target. Catapult is now firing, trying to go for the Castamir's Legion, which is obviously a worthwhile target. And the Aradirith is also going after them as well, because the Castamir's Legion is exactly the sort of thing which could tilt this fight in the attacker's favour now. the gains that Isengard have made, the solid base that those pikes gave them, although they may need another unit of pikes if they're to continue this assault. Meanwhile, as we go right up into the hills, where are we? Ah, here we go. The High Elven Cavalry is coming, and that's mainly because holes are starting to open up in this line. Although I would say that the cavalry has no place trying to charge here from the front, because the Muhard Beast Tamers will simply poke them to death. I'm not really sure what Imladris can do at this point, because their line is already breaking, but they've also committed more and more of their resources. It might have been worth trying to fall back to a more advantageous position, maybe into that hill over there, or maybe even trying to group up with Mirkwood, but as it is, they've committed so much to this front line, sentries, even their Gwathi Myrdain. They're in a bit of trouble here. The momentum is definitely with the attackers now. Despite being a little bit overly cautious early on, Harad and Isengard have now got the hang of playing as a faction with plenty of disposable manpower. Snaga skirmishers as well. Certainly not going to help matters. They're somewhat inaccurate, but they can scarcely miss. And even though their missile damage is not the highest, it is armour piercing. Which against Imladris, of course, could be very handy. Muhard Beast Tamers moving forward with more and more pikes. Defeat is a distinct possibility. Do they have any... Well, they've got some God Helim, they've got Guardians, Elder Enway Haru Quinga. I'm actually somewhat surprised that Umbar and the Isengard forces down here did not try and surround Imladris and just ignore Mirkwood. Mirkwood were always going to be in a really, really difficult position. And there are roads in and around, you know, the mountain pass. As I said before, there is no need to just try and engage them from one position only. You can try and outflank them if necessary. But so far, fortunately for the elves, the attackers haven't really done too much of that. And now you can see the Muhards recklessly charging in. Another unit of pikes is coming forward, as well as another unit of Imladris Guardians, but at this point I'm not sure it's going to be enough. You can see Harad just streaming forward with all of their men. And this is before the champions of Natharat or the Trollmen have been committed. This was always going to be a danger. Sheer numbers. And unfortunately, Imladris, they tried to reinforce, but by the time they did, it was already too late. And now the cavalry's moving in, but again, with the Beast Tamers here, I can't imagine the High Elven Cavalry is going to last too long. They're trying to close a gap. But this is going to go really badly for the High Elven Knights, you would imagine. It says defeat is almost a certainty, but there's so many men, and at this point there is a gap here, which can be used. And I would imagine that's exactly what's going to happen, I imagine. They're going to flow through here and then roll up the High Elven line. And that's why I think Mark XMD is charging his cavalry in so desperately into pikes. Because he has no choice. He needs to try and slow this down. What he really needs is to not waste his Haru Quinga's ammunition by firing it into the dirt verge there. But also something else that he could really do with as an additional unit. The Gwathi Arthand are moving forward, which I guess at this point Imladris don't really have much in reserve. They may as well throw everything forwards. But victory is certainly not going to be forthcoming. Serpent Guard are pouring in now, so that's pretty much the sign that your defence is crumbling. Also, these pikes are going to move forward, presumably to try and zone. They're going to get the cavalry as well. It's the Haru Myro. Gwathi Rockdor also moving in. The Gwathi Arthan. They're not completely dead yet in Imladris, but they're definitely hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And now I can see the column of red forces. You can see Umbar and Isengard finally getting the message. They're now going to surround and crush Imladris beneath their heel. The Númenórean Lancers as well. There's now nothing back here to defend the High Elven Skirmishers and the Númenórean Lancers. It's harvest time for them. Oh, and it's the God Helim as well. They're going to take some nasty frontal volleys, but that was a charge at full speed, I think. And yeah, even the multiple HP, the charge is landing some casualties, and on the second charge you would imagine that they're going to start to crumble. There's also Umbar infantry moving up the hill as well as Isengard ones. So yeah, this is the end. So it's going to be Mirkwood that are going to have to try and pull out a victory here. And they are still ahead by 10%, so the attackers have actually only really pulled it back by 1 percentage point since the last time we checked, but to be fair, it's only really now that they're starting to do horrendous damage. Oof. Defeat seems certain. Harad sending forward their trollmen, that's when you know they mean business. The Númenórean Lancers are in amongst everything at this point. Into the back of the Gwaith Arthan, which is actually one of the few units which could do real damage to them. They'd probably be much better off trying to go for these Imladris Guardians, even with the sentries in and amongst their Uruk-hai Berserkers as well. Isengard have committed everything forward. It'll be interesting to see how much they've actually got left in reserve, which is not that much, to be fair. Uruk-hai crossbows, they've got some Harajam archers, most of it is skirmishers back here, so all of the Harajam infantry and all of the Isengard forces that were over here were committed to deal with this. But in my opinion, definitely a worthwhile endeavour, because Imladris at this point are in tatters, and it's going to come down to Mirkwood, who, to be fair to them, are in a very advantageous position. The Castamir's Legion are here, on the front line, and actually maybe enough to force Mirkwood back at this point. If the Athalion Nanwaith are committed forward, however, that will definitely tilt back in the other direction, but do they even want to defend that hill there at the moment? I would say they still do want to, because there's only one other way into Mirkwood's position that they've situated themselves in, and that's up there. Well, Demons of the Desert, the Númenórean Lancers. Númenórean Lancers have actually taken some losses at this point in time. The Gwaith Arthan, they will cling to life for a long time. Gwaith Arthan are a notoriously difficult unit to kill off, and even in this situation, they'll hang on for longer than the attackers would want them to. Meanwhile, Demons of the Desert, are they going to get a rear shot here? Would be worthwhile saving that for Mirkwood, secure their victory. The Heru Quinga, meanwhile, and the God Heli, they're still managing to make it a balanced force, a balanced fight, despite the fact that they're hideously outnumbered by Isengard. Uruk-hai Reavers moving in. I mean, it's only a matter of time at this point. Imladris can only hope to thin out the numbers of Harad and Isengard over here as much as they can to give Mirkwood the best possible chance of winning. Which, to be fair, it doesn't look like Umbar have got much left. Umbar have committed forces up here, which is important to remember, but down there they've got their warlords, and they've also got some Abrazani, some Corsair Blackguards, and some fencers as well, which we didn't see. The fencers could be a very interesting addition here. So that is really the entirety of what's left of Umbar's force. Well, there goes the Imladris General. It's going to be difficult for Mirkwood, this. Mirkwood have got some really nasty units, and none of the attacking armies is in what you would call peak condition. But I still think that the numbers that they have are going to be far too much. And this was the danger. Imladris and Mirkwood basically deployed separate from one another, each on their own hill. And there was always a danger that the attackers could eventually focus on one of them, which has turned out to be the case. And Imladris unfortunately drew the short straw there, because their position was a little bit more open and assaultable than Mirkwood's. Uruk-hai crossbows. To be fair though, the attackers are expending a lot of their valuable resources finishing Imladris off. Look at these Gwaith Arthan, slowly but surely being worn down. Here are the Black Serpents in all their splendour. There goes the Harad General. Was he in the Dismounted Serpent Guard? That was an interesting place to put him. Well, the Champions of Nafrat are over here as well, so I can only imagine he was in that unit. Meanwhile, Númenórean Lancers trying to deal with what's left of the Gwaith Rock Door. Shouldn't take too long. Let's go and have a look at what's going on over here. The Umbar forces continuing to press forwards. The Athalion Nanwaith are now on the front line, and very quickly that fight turned around. Belagair archers routing. The Castamir's Legion not looking too good either, but fortunately for Umbar, they have Corsair Blackguards and more Blackguards on the way. So they've got Castamir's Legion and Corsair Blackguards. The Delupeng at this point, however, very much seeing the danger that these Umbar javelins could pose, and are immediately targeting them. Some nice hits as well. The arc of the arrows perfectly cutting through the entire unit, and already looking substantially less healthy than when they started their march. Exactly what they needed to do as well with Delupeng. Taking javelin fire was exactly the sort of thing they didn't want. The other unit of Castamir's Legion did at least manage to get to the front line to reinforce, however, but I still think that the Ethalion Nanway is going to be far too strong. As a single unit, they are definitely one of the real powerhouses in the game. So difficult to bring down. One remembers the 4 HP Elder Palace Guard. Hideously overpowered they were. Not quite on the same level anymore, but still one of the stronger units. And that's going to be just about it for Imladris. They are now completely destroyed. For the most part, they may have been able to save. They've got one Gwathi Rock Door on the field, which is why we didn't hear the announcer say that our ally has fled. But, to be fair, Imladris have managed to cut down the numbers of Harad and Isengard quite a lot, and they did have to deal with 2 armies for the most part. But now we shall see what Mirkwood are made of. Do they have what it takes? So far, over here is the only engagement we've got thus far. The spinning attacks of Doom from the Ethalion Nanway cutting through the Castamir's Legion, holding their own very, very nicely. Here come the Castamir's Legion as well. Another unit of them. But until the reinforcements from Harad and Isengard survive, Mirkwood should be able to hold this position. After that, the sheer force of numbers may very well come into it again. Catapult is starting to reform, maybe a contingency for when that starts to happen. Those Corsair Blackguards got ravaged by the Delupane. Still a decent chunk of this fight to go. And interestingly enough, the attackers have actually pulled further ahead, despite the demise of Imladris. That goes to show that Imladris was still inflicting casualties. But I think more importantly, the fact that Umbar have been really struggling. To be fair though, they have played into Mirkwood's hands a little bit by going up the one route that Mirkwood have got on lockdown with their Rangers, of all things. Possibly not the best route they could have taken. The Abrazanim are moving forward now. A little bit more attack focus, but even then, the Aradirith, which are out of ammunition at this point, going to be moving forward to guard the front line as well. The additional AP damage going to be incredibly useful on the front line, and they will also back up the Ethalion Nanway, which won't be able to hold this front line forever. It's worth saying. There's also the Nadu Bawi. Umbar starting to look really rough at this point. Maitha Ilaz Gelen moving forward as well, so some javelin action. I do love the Aradirith though. The fact that they've got those AP axes, super useful, offers them a really nice dimension. They're obviously very expensive, as a hybrid unit tends to be. It'll be very interesting to see how they approach this. They really need to go around. They really need to pressure Mirkwood from both sides. Otherwise, Mirkwood can afford to send all of their resources to defend one choke point. And the fact that they've got another unit of Ethalion Nanway, they've got Arguay Nanway as well. They've still got, enough in reserve to the point where they could pretty much indefinitely hold this choke point, you would imagine. After the push that Harad and Isengard just made, I don't know if they would have what it takes to do it again. And now another unit of Hiri Alth as well. Mirkwood committing more resources to hold this choke point, as they should. The Abrazanim are now somewhat on the front line, although I think they're spread out a little bit. And they seem to be all over the place. Unfortunate for them. The Catapult is starting to fire on the enemies as they advance. Will that be a hit? Nope. Going wide of the mark. But maybe making this route a little bit less attractive proposition to go down. Keep an eye on the minimap. It does look as though, as we have a look up here, you can see that the pikes are indeed moving forward. Only one unit of them, but they need to send more. But if they do go around, hitting Mirkwood from both sides will mean that they don't really have the resources to defend both sides, you would imagine. But again, splitting up your forces as the attackers could also lead to neither side being strong enough to break through. It's a delicate balancing act here. The Narduzagar are now here in force, but Mirkwood have long since backed up their line. The Ethalion Nanway are still pretty healthy, honestly. And backed up by the Aradirith and the Hiri Alth, they should be just fine. Alagai footmen moving forth. Catapult getting a grazing hit there on some dismounted Servant Guard. The Abrazani Nadubawi doing their best to try and inflict some casualties on Mirkwood, and they will from that position actually. So good use of their archers there from Umbar, who's had a bit of a torrid time in this battle so far. But you imagine that this front line is still going to hold regardless of what happens there. Those Delupeng are still hiding, waiting for the right blob to use their ammunition on. So here you can see the back route in. Now, interestingly enough, we've got some Gwathi Erin Gallen over here, which are in the perfect position to ambush. They'll be able to do some nasty damage with their projectiles, and their skill is going to be pretty difficult for a lot of these attacking units to take on, unless perhaps the Nars Kai are coming up here, which they are. The Nars Kai should still be able to defeat them. Those Hiriak, however, the Athalion are in a good position. This is all of the Mirkwood reserves they've got, essentially. We'll see if it proves to be enough. The Maitha Ilaz Gallen are pretty much the only thing they have in reserve, as well as the Delupeng down here. So this is your lot, really, with regards to the Mirkwood defence. But those Abrazani, completely overwhelmed. And that's one of the units better suited for this sort of fight as well against Elven units. They were just completely overwhelmed in terms of range fire and in terms of numbers in melee. And even 1-to-1 they still would have lost, so they needed to have the numbers advantage and not get hit by all of the arrows from Mirkwood. Again, just grazing shots from the catapult at this point just proved to be a bit of a nuisance for the attackers as it stands. Those Warlords, I'm not sure whether the Warlords are ever going to have the ideal engagement in this fight. But they could still prove to be something which the Elves can't deal with in the late game. And then they still have those Arthalion back at their quote-unquote town centre at this point. 37 Nunwaith remaining, so they are starting to fall by the wayside, but poor Umbar being used as a real punching bag here. Let's have a look at the percentages, shall we? 13%. So I mean, Mirkwood are technically speaking pulling further ahead. Although that shower of arrow fire coming now from the Hashari Stalkers as well, that could be a real turning point. The body piercing could be exactly the sort of thing the attackers need. How much ammunition they actually have left is debatable, considering they were using their ammunition on Imladris as well, but Mirkwood needs to hope it's not a lot. Maitha Ilaz Gallen. Are they targeting the Warlords? Possibly. It could be that they just want to use the ammunition on something and then get them into melee. I've never really had the Maitha Ilaz Gallen be all that fantastic in melee, but it would be another unit to hold, and they are spears after all. At this point I think Mirkwood are trying to get the Hiri out of the position so that the body piercing projectiles are maybe not quite as bad. Indeed, that is what they're doing. Good move there. Now it's just going to be the Aradirith and the Athalion Inanwe. Some Hiri Pang, and that's going to be a break from Umbar. Of course their Blackguards are reloading, but I mean at this point there's nothing defending them from Mirkwood simply charging forward and finishing them off. There's only 17 of them left alive after all. They are going to fall. This Mirkwood front line is looking a little bit more battered and bruised than you would imagine. Oh, Demons of the Desert are moving forward as well. The Demons of the Desert could be just the sort of thing to crack this defence open. We shall see if they get the correct position to start throwing their payloads. What's going on over here? But we need to keep an eye on this, because if Isengard don't notice those Gwathi Erin Gallen, that could be a real bloodbath for Isengard up there. Oh boy, where are we? Here we go. Are the Demons of the Desert firing? They are. But they are also exposing themselves a little bit. I mean, Mirkwood don't really have much of a choice other than to move forward here or pull back. Pull back a long way. We shall see. Right, meanwhile, those Demons of the Desert having a little bit of an issue firing, but what won't have an issue firing is going to be the throwing daggers from the Gwathi Erin Gallen. Isengard just forming up. And you can see the banked defence here of Hiri Lung and Hiri Ek, which is not the easiest thing to break through. But Isengard probably fancy their chances with the combination of crossbows and the fact that they do still have their Nars Kai, and the pikes are also going to be difficult, but the pikes might be in a bit of trouble. Meanwhile, what's going on down there? You just see the Demons of the Desert. It looks as though Mirkwood have pulled back. The Aradirith are still fighting, but they're now much worse off, so javelins and arrows probably found their mark. We see also Hiri Pang looking a little bit worse for wear, Maitha Ilaz Gallen and Hiri Alth. The Delupeng I think are going to fall back, And it looks as though Mirkwood are going to fall back en masse, which at this point in time is the right thing to do. They need to cut their losses and run, I think. And they are doing so. So good on Mirkwood there for a good tactical awareness to know when a position is not worth holding. It was a mistake that Imladris made over there. They continued to just throw men at that one choke point, and it worked out horrendously for them. Now timing is going to be everything here, because the Gwath cannot afford to reveal themselves too quickly, otherwise they will be destroyed. But they also can't allow the crossbows to simply shoot those lads from the front. Yep, Mirkwood managed to salvage everything. So now we've got the one unit of Weighty Rockdoor, and here come the Gwath. One unit of them. Go on, throw your daggers. Here we go. And they are AP daggers as well. And that was lethal, so that's basically a unit of crossbows gone. And the entirety of the ranged portion of the Isengard force here basically destroyed. Imladris still doing their best. They might get friendly fired here. Indeed they do. And interestingly enough, over here, Uruk-hai infantry will not beat the Gwathi Erengalen. The skill on these Elven assassins is considerable. And this could be a very telling engagement, actually. One unit of Uruk-hai crossbows destroyed. The other trying to go for the Mirkwood defensive line. But they too could find themselves in a bit of danger, and even if the Gwath are not able to shut those crossbows down, they could cause havoc here. Already, those infantry units destroyed, and the Gwath I think are actually going to retreat back behind the defensive line at this point. So they're essentially going to trade one unit of Gwath for the destruction, essentially, of a unit of Uruk-hai infantry and crossbows. Worth it? Possibly. And hello, those crossbows are sticking themselves out. They tried to overwhelm that one unit of Gwath, and they could pay for it here. Those crossbows taking damage. I doubt they'll be completely destroyed, to be fair. And at this point, of course, these assassins simply aren't going to have the numbers, but nice ambush that. Mirkwood are actually coming out now as well, which is actually the right thing to do. Because this Isengard force is a little bit scattered, and when it comes to one-on-one fighting, don't stand a chance against Mirkwood forces. The Agwe Inanwaith also moving up. Meanwhile, let's go and see what's happening on the other side. The catapult getting into a position. And Mirkwood are actually going to try and hold this hill over here. Make the Ilazgalen. Yeah, I'm not sure that this is the right move though. I mean, to be fair, he's having to micro on both sides. But I think he probably should have realised that this was not the place to set up anyway. You're already being forced back by Harad, and at this point, the damage they inflict might be the telling factor in this battle. The Maitha Ilazgalen are not going to be able to skirmish with them to the point. Well, they are expending the Demons of the Desert ammunition. I'm not really sure what to make of this. The Dalupang and what's left of the Athalion are going to be destroyed. I mean, they need to get a substantial victory up here at this point, Mirkwood, if they are to have a hope in this fight. So Maitha Ilazgalen. The Gwath very much a glass cannon here. The Agwe Inanwaith firing in here to the Snaga and the crossbows. Although a single unit of lower man count archers I don't think is going to be able to chew their way through all of these Isengard units. Maitha Ilazgalen doing some nice damage there to the Nazkai of all things. This could be the end for the Nazkai. I don't think Mirkwood... Well, they got another unit of Athalion and some other units in reserve, but I'm not sure whether that's going to be enough to weather the storm here. It is closing. The gap is closing. We're now well within 10%. And it's over here, I think, where they're losing it. This was not the place to set up at all. They should have fallen back right up here. where they've got the advantage of some cliffs. But as it is, I mean, this is going to be the end. I mean, the Hashari Stalkers have just absolutely shredded this Mirkwood defense. There goes the Isengard General, which that's the sort of thing which could honestly cause Isengard to break, which they need real bad at this point, because this fight over here is going disastrously. And they are breaking. Several of those units not enjoying the fact that their general was slain. And they still have the Arguay. It's not over yet. 6% gap. Traditionally the attackers do pull it back hard in the late game. But Mirkwood could still pull this out. I'd be very impressed if they did, because I think that ultimately the attackers should still have the numbers to pull this out. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of Isengard's forces went up here. And they are not long for this world. And indeed, I think what they're going to try and do, Mirkwood, is completely destroy Isengard and then set up in a completely different place. They're under no obligation to try and defend this area up here after all. But the Warlords are on their way now, which is probably not the best sign. Let's see what's going on down here. Well, not all that many reserves. There's still the Trollmen, which is worrying. There's still the Corsair Fence and the Champions of Nafrat. There's still elite units, which is the problem. The Warlords are caught. They're going to attack the Catapult, which is fine, honestly. I think Mirkwood at this point are just hoping that that force down there acts as a rear guard. I would be very interested to see what the Warlords do with regards to avoiding the Arguay Inanwe, because if they don't, it's going to be messy. Or, not Arguay, Arthalion, the spear variant. But having said that, the Knights will probably be able to get a nice charge off. And there go Isengard. I mean, Isengard are on the run. Those crossbows are on the verge of breaking. And they are not being given a moment's peace by Mirkwood. They are going to be chased down. So now we have this, one of the highest points on the map. If not, you know, the joint highest on the map that you can get to anyway. And this is where Mirkwood will make their stand. And it's entirely feasible that Isengard will not be able to come back from that. The Hiri line is probably going to just charge them down. Now we shall see how strong the Elven elites really are, because there are still Champions of Nafrat and Corsair Fences left, in addition to some nasty units. The Hashari Stalkers, obviously, not bad in melee either. Rangers tend to have some pretty nice skill. The Trollmen, still there as well. The numbers might prove to be a problem. It's going to be real close though. It's going to be really close. Catapult fighting to the death. I think it might actually come down to these Warlords. If Umbar can utilise these Warlords well, I don't see how Mirkwood can dig their way out. But if the Warlords die without accomplishing much, Mirkwood could make this work for them. It's within 3% at this point. That is all. And of course, some of that 3% is made up of lesser units like Haradrim Archers. If it comes down to them being in melee, we saw how woeful they can be in that Harad Linden fight that was not too long ago. Isengard may very well have salvaged one of their crossbows, which they did, which is, again, that's a really big save from Zombie Bunny. There's a single Numenorian Lancer coming in, who's going for the Gwath. I can't imagine he's going to last all that long. Indeed, he's going for the Maethir Lasgellen, which, them being spears in melee, yeah, they finished him off with no issues whatsoever. Those Hiri Lang, Newbie 1 needs to be really careful of them. If they take a full frontal volley from the Uruk-hai crossbows, that's again the sort of thing which could decide the match. Man, killing that Isengard general has bought him some breathing space. Very close, and you know, we're well within the final 10,000 frames. The battle, so engrossed in the battle I didn't even notice that point pass, but this is definitely the final stages. It could come down to morale again, honestly. If the Haradrim general falls, a lot of Harad units could lose stomach for the fight. Umbar don't really have all that much left, so morale probably isn't going to be an issue for them. And what they do have left is high tier stuff like the Warlords and the Corsairs. What's going to go on here? The Uruk-hai crossbows reloading. They've actually been caught by a single Elven spearman. Wow. Under the radar, and the unit getting caught on them. More of the crossbows falling. Crossbows trying to get out of there. They're shaken. I mean, if they get caught properly at any point in time, it's gonna be real messy for them. And honestly, I would just keep chasing them with the Hiri Lang. They're eager, they're fresh. The Uruk-hai crossbows are going to get tired before your units do, and when they do, that is when you strike. And at this point, running out of breathing room. Isengard just have a unit return. Some Snaga skirmishers. I mean, honestly, this is the best place you could break the Uruk-hai crossbows, because there'd be no chance of them returning. You're right on the map border. Interesting. Meanwhile, what's going on down here? Here we can see the forces. Combined forces. The Warlords actually, this could be the moment where they take advantage of the fact that the Hiri Lang are hideously separated. And the Hiri Lang, of course, would be crushed by the Warlords in a charge. And that would be a really tragic loss, actually, for Mirkwood. Hiri Lang would be exactly the sort of thing which would tilt the melee fight in their favour a lot. Few of these units can stand up to Elven skill at this point. The Harad elites could still prove to be a real issue. The Demons of the Desert, presumably they've been using a lot of ammunition throughout the battle. I can't imagine they've got much left. The Hashari Stalkers, if they still have ammunition left, that could be a really big factor. What are the Warlords doing? I mean, if I were them, I'd definitely go for the unit separated Hiri Lang, and it looks like that's what the MK Overlord is doing as well. Meanwhile, right at the right time here, the Uruk-hai crossbows going to be destroyed, which is a good catch, to be fair. Those missiles, if they got into the wrong position, could have been the sort of thing which cost the elves the match. And they are now breaking, and they are right on the map boundary, so they will not be coming back. But the Hiri Lang, I don't think, are going to be able to get back to the safety, or relative safety, of their defensive position before the Warlords get them. They could try and shield themselves from the charge by placing themselves behind the Snaga, which would be an interesting gambit. At the very least, they could get rid of these Snaga, which would be another good catch if they still have javelins remaining. What is going on here? The Agwe still have ammunition, and the attackers have really got no choice but to charge forward at this point, and they will have to go right into the jaws of all of these elves. The Maith Ilaz-Gelen could still have ammunition as well, which their javelins could prove to be extremely important. And here go the Hiri Alth, charging in. Maith Ilaz-Gelen don't still have ammunition, but you know, their numbers will still be appreciated in melee. They'll lose to Trollmen, of course. The champions of Nathrat will be defeated as well by a combination of Hiri Lang and a Thalion y Nanwaith. Those Gwath, and those Serpent Guard were crushed by the Hiri Alth very, very quickly indeed. Well, this is going to be it. The Agwe y Nanwaith kind of need to get into melee at this point. Hello? Is that the Snaga? It is, so that's Isengard gone. The Warlords at this point could be the thing which win them the match. The Hiri Lang honestly could do with being the distraction at this point. That's going to be so nasty for the Hiri Lang to take, though, and I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to inflict any casualties on the Warlords. Because at this point the Elves need... The last thing they need is the... They've only just now lost half their men, though, Mirkwood. Haraja marches move forward. Those are Thalion y Nanwaith, though. They've really shown how powerful they are in this match. Like, people have said that they've lost their teeth ever since they've been made not OP. But I think this battle proves just how strong they are. They didn't lose a single man to the champions of Nathrat. Meanwhile, though, this could prove to be a real problem. Those Gwath are going to try, and actually those Hiri Lang are still alive. Those Gwath are going to try and catch the Warlords of Umbar and break their charge, which they need to do here. I'm really pulling for the Elves at this point. I really want them to win. They don't really slow down the Warlords' charge at all. But the Maith Ilaz-Gelen are spears. Maybe they can do some nasty damage to them, but I think at this point the cavalry is going to prove to be a little bit too much. Agwe y Nanwaith. The Haraja Marchers, of course, are going to be no match for Elves. Ooh dear. The Demons of the Desert do still have ammunition and they've wriggled free. They need a unit to go after these guys at this point. They need to stop this massacre. They've got a 1% lead still, the Elves. 1%. But the Warlords of Umbar. The Warlords of Umbar are actually taking some losses to the Maetherial Asgallan, but
The battle is very much in our favour. Victory will be ours.
it's an interesting read that the announcers got on the situation. But the Athalion Inanwaith, honestly, might be the sort of thing which, well, just as I say that, the demons of the desert start attacking them. The Argue Inanwaith need to get out of there, and they need to stop these demons. If they lose the Athalion Inanwaith, that's the end. It really is. It might be that the Athalion actually get out of here as well. Well, the Haradrim archers are actually routing and dead, so that's the Athalion Inanwaith are now free to engage whom they like, and that will be the end of the demons of the desert. The Warlords are also starting to lose and bleed unit models. Yeah, the Mirkwood are going to win this, I think. I think they have it in the bag because I don't see any attacking units left which can possibly deal with the Athalion. The demons are dead. The Argue are also still alive, a little bit more damage, but still not the sort of unit which goes down easily. And yeah, Mirkwood, they've got this. The Warlords of Umbar alone are not going to be enough to pull this out. The Corsair Fencers are strong, but they're not this strong. And the Beast Tamers are not really in a position where they can focus on one direction. They're going to have to. They're going to be caught out of formation, and yeah, that's going to be it. Mirkwood. It looked pretty grim for a while there, but these Warlords are doing their best to try and pull things back, but the Maetherial Asgallan have stood firm as well with their spears. That's going to be the end of Harad. Umbar, despite having the toughest start and taking the most casualties early on, are actually the last attacking army left standing. But ultimately their long fight with Mirkwood is going to come to an end, and Mirkwood are going to come out on top of that. They are admitting defeat at this point. But I think that proves that the unit formerly known as the Elder Palace Guard has still got it. Because they would, I have to say, they were almost certainly the MVPs in this match. On both fronts they did extremely well, and they were definitely the thing which made Mirkwood's victory possible. But the Gwathi and Gallen, that ambush was nasty as well. Deprived Isengard of their crossbows, which I'm sure Isengard were licking their lips at the prospect of shooting into this choke point with all their crossbows. But if anyone's got hidden units, it's going to be Mirkwood. You always need to consider the fact that there's going to be something hidden, and very, very useful there.
Victory is ours.
There we go.
Let it be a salve upon our wounds.
By a single percentage point. Really nice battle. Mountain Pass battles tend to be really, really good, don't they? And here we go. Well, obviously Mirkwood getting the most kills because they lasted longer than Imladris, and Imladris had to deal with that big mass push. Isengard getting the most kills on this side. Again, doesn't surprise me too much. Maybe I would have expected Harad to get that, but ultimately it's much of a muchness. Umbar, of course, drawing the short straw and having to go against that Mirkwood position. But Mirkwood, Athalion Inanwaith doing very well between them. Hiri Peng doing well, but of course, as always with this sort of situation, the Rangers getting the most kills. 2 units of Delu Peng, one getting just over 600 kills, one getting just shy of 450. Elsewhere, Hiriak, a Spearmen unit, doing very well. The Argue Inanwaith doing a good job. The Gwathi and Gallen, of course, considering they're assassins which usually burn out quickly, getting close to 200 kills each is a good return on the investment. Some of these units doing better than others, but obviously some were also engaged by large quantities of the big push towards the end. But yeah, big thanks to Newbie1 for sending this to me. He's also the one that sent me the Dun Harrow battle not too long ago with those nice Witcher shots, so it's good to see the Gwath being used to their full effect, because they are a unit which is considered quite risky to bring in sort of standard field battles, so you don't get to see them all that much. But yeah, big thanks to him. Thanks for joining for this, and next I think we will probably be doing the Grey Havens, so yeah, I hope you'll join me for that.